I mean, it's not us 24/7, don't get me wrong. I'm
No.
not going around the house saying skibbity riz and wearing my t-shirt like a teenager.
Oh,
And
what?
Why do you parent like that?
Hello, welcome back to Why Do You Parent Like That? For another week, it's me, your host, your bestie, Abby Harrison, coming to you live from the depths of norovirus, which is why you're getting this weird automated voice instead of the usual intro. I'll keep it short so you don't have to listen to it too much. Please like, subscribe, follow, rate, review, share, all the dang things. Check out my Substack, which is linked in the show notes, particularly if you want to hear the secret sixth question from the guests. I made last week's secret sixth question available for everyone to view 'cause I'm crazy like that, so it's worth subscribing just to see what might happen. This week's episode is with Ben Boyce of Jono and Ben fame. He is a proud girl dad, dad of teenagers, and dad who now creates content with his kids. It was a very pinch me moment to be chatting to such an entertainment industry giant, so thank you for listening to make this possible, and thank you so much Ben for joining me. Okay, that's all from me. Enjoy the episode. Kazoo, Diplodocus, Kia ora, ha. Okay, sorry, I'll stop now. This lady just sounds so crack up. Haaaaaayyyyyooooo. Say it back.
Why do you parent like that?
Today's guest is one of Aotearoa's OG radio jokers, the kind of guy you tune in for every morning, even when you're half awake. Ben Boyce has been making Kiwi households laugh for over 2 decades, from writing legendary jingles like the Show Us Your Crack radio spot, to creating cult TV hits like Pulp Sport, Wanna Ben, and of course, Jono and Ben. You've also probably woken up to him on the Hits Breakfast alongside Jono Pryor and Megan Pappas, or seen him live embarrassing his daughters with cringe Gen Z slang at the drive-thru. That went a bit global, and yes, even Paris Hilton got involved with that one. These days, Ben is settling into a whole new kind of project, a parenting podcast he's co-hosting with his daughter Sienna called When I Grow Up. Together they interview inspirational Kiwi women, dive into teenage dreams and hilarity, and explore how public life and private family habits collide. I also have Ben to thank for being welcomed into the iHeart family, which he didn't know until now, but I'm still very grateful, because he was the one that made them aware of this podcast. So Ben, welcome to Why Do You Parent Like That?
Hey, thanks very much for having me. What an introduction. I need to get a copy of that to keep with me at all times. That was great.
Yeah, screenshot it, have it on your phone when you're feeling a bit shit about yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Some of those things I had forgotten I'd done as well, so that was great to hear those again. Some of them I cringed at. So yeah,
I didn't know
good.
that you were the Show Us Your Crack guy. That is iconic.
Yeah, it's really weird because it was my first job in radio. I know there's a parenting podcast, but first job in radio was to write commercials, and that's the only one that's stood the test of time. It was just one that you were like, they're never going to continue to use it, but they have. So yeah, it's kind of a little claim to fame, if that's the right term.
I mean, look, you've got a few claims to fame at this stage, but Show Us Your Crack is pretty iconic in New Zealand culture. So well done on that one.
It's one of the more random ones. So yeah,
it's hilarious.
Yeah,
so absolutely. I feel like if you ask people what an iconic New Zealand jingle is, they would sing that one up in the top 5 easily. So
well, that's good.
Go.
Nowadays it's St. Pierre's sushi, but
but that's way less clever and just like an annoying earworm that gets stuck in your ears.
It's stuck in your head. So yeah,
it's true. It does its job. Cool. So we'll jump right into it with the first question, which is, tell me about your journey to becoming a parent.
Well, I've got 2 daughters. My wife and I, we've got, and I feel like we're at not the end of our parenting journey, because obviously, but we're, a lot further along now with both of them starting, my youngest starting high school this year. So Sienna's 15, Indie's 13. Every time I say that, I'm like, wow, geez, where do those years go? They go so fast.
Yeah.
But it's awesome. I mean, I always wanted to be a parent, and it was one of those things I know that not everyone's fortunate enough to do. Feel very blessed that we got to do it, and I love it. I mean, like I'm sure we'll talk about, there's always highs and lows with everyone when it comes to parenting. Really, it's a really just amazing thing to be part of this life, and it really has given me a sense of purpose in a lot of ways. Like for a while it was, you do stuff for work and, maybe you think that's important, but it really gives perspective on what's important and something to
Totally.
kind of like, you're like, these depended on me now and my wife now. So it's something that, that first time it's one of those moments I will never forget, bringing Sienna home, our oldest, for the first time from the hospital, and you sort of close the door and you're like, it's just us now. It's us and we're
Okay,
responsible,
we're in charge.
Yeah. It's such a surreal feeling, but one
Yeah.
that, that I'm pretty stoked to have, and I just love.
Was it hard for you to decide like when you wanted to have kids because your career was kind of taking off at the same time as you like wanting to start a family? What was that conversation like?
Yeah, I guess a little bit. I mean, we took a while my wife will say we took a while before we were together a long time before we got married. So yeah, she'll be like, you made me wait quite a long time. But
How long?
so
How long did you
yeah,
make her wait? How much do we need to shame you?
I think we were 7 years engaged.
Oh,
or
okay, so
something like
that's
that.
not engaged for 7 years.
And then we've been together. She was like, "Is it going to happen?" And then we've been together a while since then. We've been together a long time. So, I mean, we're happy, but it was always something, as you say, that we wanted to do. And it's just the timing and work wise and everything wise. But I guess once it happens, it gives you a real sense of that purpose. And I think in some ways, when we first had the girls, I was crazy busy, doing the John and Ben TV show every week and the John and Ben the radio show, and it was amazing, career wise it was really cool, but it's actually been really, in some ways, not career wise over the last few years, it hasn't been quite as busy, but I've been very fortunate to have my afternoons, after radio, while there's still work from time to time, the afternoons, it's been really cool to be part of that afternoons with the girls and take them to their sports practice or rehearsals and hang out with them in the evening and dinner, because my wife works a lot later, so I feel like in some ways maybe it was meant to be that I got to spend this time with them, and that's something I get the good end of the day, like the day where everyone's a bit more, it's fun.
Calm and
So
my dad was actually the same. He was a flower wholesaler, so he was up at the auctions, the really early auctions. So we never saw him in the mornings, but he always picked us up from school. And so we had him, like, he came to all like our sport and all our activities, and like he was one who got us from school and like got us home, and it was so lovely. I feel like I felt a lot closer to my dad than a lot of my friends who had dads that were working those kind of like traditional 9 to 5 hours got. It was a really special time. I look back on that and like I'm still very close with my dad now, and I look back on that and I credit a lot of that to being the hours that he worked.
And that's again, with me starting the radio early, it's the same thing. So it's cool. I mean, I spend a lot of time probably weirdly outside, school netball practice, and I'm in the car on my laptop doing work. I'm like, this is a bit weird. I'm a grown man on a laptop creep outside the school. So there's those sort of surreal moments where I'm like, it's easy just to wait in the car here while you've got this thing and the other thing. But it's actually something that I've really loved, is to be, part of that, and because I do feel like it's the girls. It makes me really sad that they're growing up, and there's the time where they won't be in the house. So I'm now starting to go, that's happened, feels like faster than I'd hoped. So, I'm just really trying to value this time that we get over the next couple of years.
Yeah, totally. Can you remember, like, cast your mind back to the early days and what that kind of experience was like for you? Like, what was early postpartum like for you guys, and compared for the first to the second, and kind of what was that experience like?
I mean, I think every parent will tell you that every kid is different. And, where kids that grow up in the same household have can be totally different in a lot of different ways. What worked for one doesn't always work for the other, and that's a real lesson to learn.
I'm really in the thick of learning that at the moment. I've got a 3-year-old, and she's just 6 months old today, and everything, it feels like nothing is the same between them, and we're like, why does nothing apply?
Exactly. So it's one of those things you're like, that's going to work, or that didn't work, and for us, our oldest Sienna she was quite sick when she was young. She had this thing that ended up being as kind of immune sort of the thing that she had, that every 3 weeks she'd get sick, and we were just like, is this normal? Is this like a normal thing? And we'd take her to a specialist, and we'd think, are we overreacting? And then she'd be healthy, and every 3 weeks she'd get sick again. And in the end,
what a cycle.
And she ended up having, she would overheat and have a seizure and things like that. She had one of those, which was quite scary. But you were like, is this obviously not normal, but we don't want to overreact? And
first-time parents, you're like, I don't know, is this just something that everyone deals with and no one's talking about it?
And she'd be a happy kid, and then sometimes you take her to the doctor and they're like, it's just the flu. And I was like, she's getting sick quite regularly, almost like clockwork. And my wife actually discovered that, sometimes when you remove the tonsils, it can help with the thing. And that's the thing that kind of brought her back on track. So things like that you didn't know, and I think every parent has those stories of things they're like, oh, okay, this is something that we had to deal with and didn't know anything about, because there's no sort of textbook for parenting. You're not handed anything. I mean, you can obviously go through antenatal classes and research and read books and talk, but
but that only teaches you how to give birth. And then you're like, okay.
Well, that was the
thing.
Yeah, you're right. That was the thing. Again, when you get home, you shut that door. You're like, okay, well, that's us now. And how does this work? And there's things you feel you do right, and other things you do. You go, I would change. But I guess that's all part of the parenting journey.
Yeah, totally. And what was the transition from 1 to 2 like for you guys when Indie came around?
Yeah, it was definitely. As that stage, I was working a lot. With the 2 jobs and trying to balance that. So I feel like now for what my wife did for the family, I'm paying back now in the afternoons and stuff, and doing my fair share. So it was definitely a lot, with travel for work and things like that. So, and I guess there was probably a lot of when we were both around where one would take one and one would take the other. So I'd have those times where I'd maybe bond with Sienna, who's the oldest, and we go do things, or while Indy was with my wife. So there was probably those sort of relationships that you got to develop in different ways as well, which was kind of cool. We got to really bond, Sienna and I, and she would hang with me at work, and that probably led her to like to see a lot of the work stuff, and probably led her to have a real interest in my type of work. I feel like
I must have seen Sienna on TV when she was about 2 or 3 for the first time. I feel like Sienna is quite New Zealand figure on the TV by this stage. It's quite awesome.
They're both. I mean, I think one of Indy's, when she was a baby, we put her in a pot on a MasterChef parody for Jono and Ben. That was one of those things we did. They both sort of grew up, I guess, with me making silly, TV shows and radio shows, and kind of I would help out from time to time, and they both enjoyed that, which is cool. But Sienna in particular really took a loving to it, and I think most days she'd rather hang out with me at work than school. So, it was cool to kind of see her kind of get into wanting to do that sort of thing as well.
And when did that conversation kind of change for you guys from it's something she likes coming along and doing, to her being like, no, this is something I would actually quite like to pursue and do? What did that conversation look like?
Yeah, well, we were probably, I guess, a little, because I definitely don't want to push. You don't want to push anyone into anything. You want everyone to develop and have their own interests, and the last thing that I wanted was to feel like I was bringing them into, even though they do stuff for the TV, little things for TV and radio. It was probably for a long time there we wouldn't put the girls on social media, or we were just until Sienna was. She kept saying, I want to do tour reviews. I want to do YouTube. And you were like, okay. She'd say that more and more. And I guess we kind of got to the point where my wife and I were talking, and it's like, well, I'm not being modest. I'm not practical in any way. I can't fix anything. I'm not good at a lot of skills, but I wouldn't say skills, because arguably there's been a lot of terrible skits I've done over the years, but I have done, TV and radio and video stuff. So
you're quite accomplished in the area she's interested in, to be fair.
At least there was that. So we're like, hey, if you want to do it, let's do it. And at any stage, like with both the girls, we've always said, if you don't want to do it, no one has to do this sort of thing. But if you want to do it, that's fun. And if tomorrow you decide not to, that's cool as well. And hopefully you learn some skills that are helpful along the way for whatever you decide to do. I mean, Indy she's hilariously funny. And but for a while, she was probably like, oh, it's not as into it as, I was like, that's fine. And then now over the last couple of years, she's been like, I really love it. I want to do more. And that's cool. And both are fine, but it's really cool to have, her and Sienna both now being, showing that they want to do some of that as well, which is kind of cool, but not a given. As I keep saying, I'm like, you don't have to do this. This is not a normal thing that every family does. But it's been a cool little thing again for us to probably have, my parenting journey's probably gone from, at some stage recently, realizing that I'm I'm a bit of a dorky dad, and I'm embracing that, it's fine. And things, I think my parents were the same, but you'd say words, and probably yours too, you'd say things and you get embarrassing reactions. And that's become the basis of a lot of our social media of late, was just going, that's great. The things that I'd get embarrassed about, my parents would do, now I get to, experience that with them. And, and the girls have been cool enough to sort of roll with that and have a bit of fun with it and see it as a fun little thing we can do together.
Yeah. Has that been I know that this is parenting, but we're getting into a bit of identity here. Has that been a strange identity shift for you? Because obviously when you like came into doing TV and radio, you guys were kind of like the funny, young, down to earth, like neighbors next door blokes, and now you're kind of leaning into the like, I'm the embarrassing grown up. Is that like quite a weird shift for you in mindset?
Yeah, it probably has been. It's probably taken a little while. It was probably a little, after when the TV show ended in particular, it wasn't our choice. So you kind of probably did go, well, what is the thing that I do? And for many years, like you say, it'd been a bit sort of like the larrikin, and why I still like to have fun and do all those things. And in some ways, I'm still doing a version of that now.
Yeah.
You can't just do the same. You feel like you can't just do the same things over again. Otherwise, it's like, well, this guy's really sad. So it's been.
He's clinging on.
I mean, you still want to have fun. I don't feel like I am growing up, and I feel like I'm maturing. But at the same time, you still want to have fun and want to entertain people, I guess. But it has been a bit of a change. But then in some ways, I probably feel like it's kind of authentic. I mean, it's not us 24/7. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going around the house saying skibbity riz and wearing my t-shirt like a teenager and stuff. That's not me. I get that kind of out of the way, and we have a bit of fun, and then we do normal stuff. We're going off to rehearsals and practice, and we talk about tidying up and things like that. So there's and the homework. There is that side, but I guess it feels authentic to who we are now. The girls are teenagers. I'm the dad. I'm a bit of a dork from time to time and a bit embarrassing, but we have fun together. And it's been kind of nice to feel like we can reflect that a bit without feeling too forced.
Yeah, that is nice. All right, we'll move on to the second question, which is, what does successful parenting mean or look like to you?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I was kind of thinking about this before. I mean, for me, and maybe because it's where the girls are in high school, you think about what they want to achieve in their life. And I guess for me and my wife, it's always felt about do we give them everything that they can to fulfill their dreams, to do the things that they want to do, to be people that are kind and caring and good members of society and passionate about things and want to, chase their dreams. And I guess we feel really, proud when we hear, things, or we see them demonstrating kindness and work ethic and things like that. So you hope that as a parent, you give them all those skills that, as sad as it is to think about, that allows them to go out on their own and achieve the things that they want to achieve. And I guess, that for me, it feels like a success if they are, we did this exercise the other day from work, sorry to take a tangent there, but we had a sports motivator in as part of our conference who works with athletes. And one of the exercises he got us to do, which was really interesting, was like, imagine yourself at 80 years old and who's there and what are they saying and what have they, said to you about what they've done, and you've been part of their lives. And it makes you think, maybe before kids, I would have had a totally different thing going. I've succeeded in this and I've done this, and I'm kind of probably in a way selfishly about me. But now it was all I could think of in my mind was like, I hope the girls are happy and they're doing what makes them happy, and whatever that is, and it's like, if they got partners, whatever, it doesn't mean, it's just like, I just hope they're happy and they're, and that's all that really mattered in that moment. So I was like, it's kind of, I guess in some ways success for me is that, I guess, as a parent.
Yeah, it is quite funny. Like I've had friends recently ask me like, what is the shift like to becoming a parent? Because I have like had kids quite young. I'm sort of the first in my friend group to have kids. And so a lot of friends are now thinking about having kids. And so they're asking me like, what's it like? What's that change like? And there's, there's this huge debate over whether we have kids. There's a lot of like child-free movement. And so a lot of my friends are kind of weighing up, is this even something I want to do? And I always say like, I actually just don't know how to describe to you that it's just like everything about your life, mind, body, soul, spirit changes. But it's great. Like, that's so daunting and terrifying to say to someone, but it's the best thing I've ever done, and I don't know how to like marry those two things up.
Well, it is the coolest thing, and I think, like, it's for me as well. It's like, if I'm going to have a trip somewhere or do something, I'm like, well, let's do it with the kids, because that time may not happen again, again. And so, you're right. It's all those things in one, but it is the coolest thing that you wouldn't change for the world, and it's been really cool to see them just, develop developed into their own unique, while together they're quite similar, they've also got their own unique things. And to see parts of me, I guess in some ways, and parts of my wife and parts of their own personality develop, it's been a really cool thing to know, Sienna, like you say, has probably been more of the show pony sort of, she loves to, great with conversations, great with people. You put her in situations, she can interview the Prime Minister or, things that I couldn't even be doing at that age.
I'd be so terrified. I was so impressed by her. I was like, oh my gosh, that is so scary.
Yeah, like things like that, which is awesome. And then Indie is just the most driven, organized, person that, like she's also great in those social situations too, but she's got this amazing, like Google Docs. She will be like, I took her to Santa when she was, like at the mall a few years ago, and he was like, what do you want for Christmas? And she was like, I've got a Google Doc of stuff I can share that with you.
She is going to be a CEO one day. That girl is ready to take over the world. I love it.
And I was like, wow,
That's
we go away on a weekend or something, and we're like, what's your list, Indy? I love making a list, but she's got a list of things that we need to, it's really, it's cool to see her to have those skills as well, which is cool. So very different, but at the same time, it's really cool.
I was so impressed. I obviously just like follow you guys on social media, so I see various stuff that you post, but I was so impressed with Sienna's post after you guys went to the radio awards together. She put up this tiny story just being like, I was just so inspired to be in a room full of I was like, is this girl like 20? She just spoke so beautifully and was like so gracious and humble. I was like, oh man, like you would never pick, I guess kids of public figures, you kind of have this idea that they're like entitled or what, there's like a bit of a
what you don't want.
association.
There's the whole Nepo baby.
Yeah, exactly. But like seeing her be like, no, this was actually really cool and I'm really grateful for this was awesome. I was like, go girl.
Oh, that's nice to hear. Yeah, well, because, the thing is, again, like I say, we never wanted to push them into it, but she's always wanted to do it, and she's probably pushed us into it. And I remember a mate going, well, if she's good, she wants to do it and you're good at it, why are you not helping her with something you could be? You don't want to look back and go, I stopped her from doing something she wanted to do because I was
stopped her from living her dream because I do it.
Yeah, I was worried about that. And that's been a really cool thing, for me is another element that I've just got to really love over the last little while, that I never had when I was doing those other shows was just to be working with Sienna on a podcast and experiencing that or, making videos with the girls and they now go, their ideas, they'll get me on a prank or something or they'll come up with something themselves. And it's cool. And it's been really different. And we always talk about, the boundaries and I'm sure we'll get into that later. But it's been cool to have that, they have that part of our life as well of late. So it's been cool.
Totally. What's your favorite age been to parent so far? What's like the favorite stage?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, every stage is
Sienna
really
and Indie,
different.
if you're listening now and he doesn't say now, it doesn't mean he
I'm
doesn't
gonna
love
say
you.
now. I gotta say now. I know, but they get, they want their independence now, and they're becoming their own person as well, and that's in some ways you do understand that's happening more and more, but then I do feel fortunate that they do want to hang with us. And they want to, even though I'm a bit of a dork of a dad, they still were happy to, hang out with me and make these videos and have these things that we do to get, like going to experience the radio awards the other night, the podcast radio awards, I was like, at first I was like, because Sienna was part of one of our nominations and I was like, is that okay to bring her? And work were like, no, she's part of it. But then again, you don't want to feel like you're just, this guy bringing a kid along to,
kid.
But, she was really like, it was really cool seeing it through her eyes, but you've probably been in the industry for a while now. So the things that were exciting and always exciting now for me, but for her, it was just like, oh my God, I get to wear a dress and I get to be in this room with these people and know these people, and those things was really cool to see through her. And that was, it was actually quite special.
That's really cool because people often talk about that in the toddler years that, you're like experiencing a child see a tractor for a first time or go on a plane for a first time or whatever, but it's really cool to hear that continues as they get old. Like I think people maybe forget that you're still experiencing things for the first time right up until they're in their teenage years and in their adulthood.
Right.
Like you never actually lose that walking alongside someone who's there doing life for the first time, which is so cool.
Yeah, you're right. It's just in different ways.
Yeah.
So that was just another moment that I was very fortunate that I could have.
Yeah, totally. And has there been a least favourite stage?
Least favorite stage? Not necessarily. I mean, I think everything, there is definitely times where, the kids would be not sleeping or, like you're tired, my wife's tired. I mean, at the start, it was, it's really hectic on, Amanda, my wife, and she was dealing, those things. And I guess a lot of parents, the new parents were like, what's it like?
Yeah.
And you sometimes go, oh, at the time you think, we're never going to get through this, but you do. And you
We're
get
going to
through those
die.
things.
We're going to die
Yeah.
because of this.
Yeah. I've had no sleep and other things, so, but yeah, so I guess those moments when you feel like you're in, the trenches and you're like, okay, but they pass, most of those things pass. And that's probably a good thing, I think, for all parents to know is that those moments do pass and those things you look back on, like Megan, who we do the radio show now, she'll be talking about her kids who are younger going, not sleeping through the night. And you're like, oh yeah, I remember that, stage, or having to pack their bag when we go away on holiday and those things now that they take care of themselves a lot more,
Oh, the dream. I cannot wait to not have to pack a bag anymore.
Yeah, I know. You're like, guys, well, Indy's always got a list if you need a list, but
Indy, my girl. I need one of my kids to be like her.
but that's kind of one of the things as well, that you go, oh, okay, it's those things you look back on and you're like, well, it was a while ago, but wasn't that long ago that you're dealing with those things, and it moves quickly.
I was going to say, does that feel recent, or does that feel like a lifetime ago? Those sort of like early days.
It feels like it does go. I mean, it's a cliche. I think every parent says it goes fast, and it does go fast. It does feel like every year, it's like, well, we're on to this stage now, or, a real moment of them going to school or, finishing primary school. And now even this year with Indy starting high school as well.
School.
It's just like, wow, we've got 2 kids at high school and all those things.
Yeah.
And, and it does make me sad to think that, there's going to be a stage where I'm like, guys, you're not leaving me, are you? You're staying around,
You're staying here, eh?
Yeah. But, that's the reality of what they, I mean, who knows what that is or how they choose to do it. But at the moment, you just got to kind of, how things are going to happen. But at the same time, it's just great to appreciate those moments while they're there.
Yeah, totally.
Which is, being present, which is something that I feel like you all get busy and, and I'm not always the best at. So it's trying to, you're wanting to work on this thing or this other thing. So it's nice to try and be better at. It's something I'm trying to do more of, but I don't always nail, that's for sure.
It must be hard, like just the nature of your job where it's all quite like opportunities based to try and find that balance of like, there must be pressure for you to take every opportunity that comes your way.
Yeah, I guess so. You don't know. Yeah, you're right. It's probably one of those things. Yeah, every job you're like, this is going to be the last. I mean, I know the nature of it where if you feel like you're not in favor for some things, and I probably feel like in some ways now it's not where I'm at, and especially in that TV world. So I'm like, and the TV world's totally different to what it was 10, 15 years ago as well. So there's all that. But you're right. It's probably hard to go, when do I say I've got to do this? And other times where do we balance it and go, well, we've only got this period with the girls and the family life as well. So that's where in some ways it's been awesome for me to have, and hopefully for them to be doing stuff together has been a nice way too. Not that I was forever doing it for that reason. And I feel like Sienna doesn't need me on a podcast anymore. It's like, hey, I'm just blending into the background here. But it's been really cool, to have that as well. And that's not everyone gets to experience that, I guess. So I feel fortunate that's happened for me. As hopefully for them, they feel the same, but you can ask them.
I'm sure they do. Yeah, maybe I'll get them on the pod next.
Yeah, exactly. They could do some home truths on me.
I'll be like,
for sure.
You guys aren't parents, but I'm going to ask you to fact check everything your dad said.
Yeah, exactly. It's probably true. Yeah, they used to hearing a conversation on the radio, and they're like, oh yeah, I think that was kind of how it went, but yeah,
sort of. Yeah, that's so funny. All right, we'll move on to the next question, which is, what is something about your parenting style that feels unique to you? I
think, like I probably talked about, it's kind of been quite unique over the last couple of years. Well, it's like some other families do it, but not many, where you're kind of, we've got a light and a camera, like a tripod, and we're making things together as a family, and, making some videos, particularly over the last couple of years, has been something that has felt quite unique compared to a lot of
Yeah.
other, I guess, families around the country. And it's certainly
Yeah.
something that we never planned on, but it's sort of happened. And it's been, something that does feel a little bit unusual at times, but it's, it's part of our life and for the moment. But again, who knows how much longer, but at the moment, it's something we enjoy doing as a family. Except my poor wife, Amanda, she is the very unpaid camera person that comes out on the weekend. They'll be like out somewhere, but like, can you just roll up on my phone quickly? I've got this idea I'm going to do. She's like, all right, here we go.
Yeah. There's 3 of you now. Great.
I know. So she's like, this wasn't how I saw spending my weekends, but
That's so
but
funny.
it's awesome that she does it, and we go out and we do these things, and again, it's social media. I say that to the girls all the time. It's a highlight reel of people's lives most times. It's not what it's like all the time, and we're definitely not out doing that 24/7, but we are picking our moments or doing there, or I'll be out there and we'll drive through the drive-through and I'll surprise the girls or something like that. Have those little moments, those little pockets that probably make it quite unique. Another element to add to our family life.
Totally. What's it like navigating, because I guess in some ways now your daughters are also your co-workers, which is like an interesting dynamic shift for you. So what's that kind of been like? Do you ever have to like play the dad card, I guess is what I'm asking, is like, how are you finding setting those boundaries in the like content creation space?
It's probably a couple of things that springs to mind. One is, for many years I've always, wanted to make little videos and little things, which essentially we're still doing. But I kind of feel like I kept saying to Sienna the other day, I was like, what's our angle? I always talk about what's our angle on something. And she wanted me to do this dance. She's like, Dad, can we do this dance? I was like, what's our angle? What's our angle? And she's like, Dad, can we just do the dance like it is? And you try it. And I'm like, okay, all right. But it's not going to be as good. And then she put it online and I was like, obviously we always make sure we're okay with putting it online. I'm like, yep, sweet, put it online. And it went, one of her videos, it went crazy. I'm like, no, see, I don't know anymore. Content-wise, maybe I don't know
what the angle is.
There was no angle, but it went down well. So I was
What's the angle?
For me, it was like one of those moments I was like, oh yeah, well these guys, they know a lot of that world and, and what works, and it's probably learning from them. They're teaching me as well as that sort of stuff. But I guess, setting boundaries is probably something we've been conscious of. My wife and I are just trying to work. We do have time limits on their apps, and, like we do talk about, like social media, there's good things, there's bad things, and, the comments is something we need to, I'm used to, I guess, navigating through my career, but it's been totally different to talk to the girls about, when you put yourself out there, how you deal with good and bad, and how those things, for me, it could stick with me, and I still feel like, I don't always deal with those well, so it's kind of been sort of talking them through those sort of things, and which I guess in some ways I've got experience in, which has been good. And
I was going to say quite amazing in that, like, you have that experience to be like, I have been there and I know what this feels like.
And what's, putting stuff out there that, we talk and, you're going to make mistakes, and we try not to make less of those, but there's stuff that I did, previously that I would definitely not do now, and times change and things move on, and it's conscious of those things, and you can only, I guess, make the decisions you feel are right at the time, but we're more cautious, try and be more cautious with the girls, but there are things that we hopefully will, not too many things will get wrong, but, there is that risk attached to that, I guess, and we talk through that sort of thing, and particularly some of those videos that have gone kind of nuts around the world, and they kind of open you into a whole nother sphere of people that don't, they have no idea who you are, and there are people going, it's either dad or just some weirdo, and I'm like, why would I be hanging out with these kids if I was
a creepy dude?
It's like, that was one of the comments I read the other day, but it's like sometimes disabling comments or talking about what goes on the internet is there, for there, it's very hard to take it back when it's out there. So there's those sort of things, I guess, we're mindful of, and talking to the girls about using it for their, using it for them in some ways, rather than being passively looking at it as their ways we can create content, or there's things that you want to do that, you're adding to people's enjoyment rather than just passively, so using it in a way that hopefully is beneficial. But there's pros and cons, and it's a huge debate now, and I can see both sides of the good and the bad things about it, even though we are part of that world now, creating content. There's good things and there's bad things, about it
totally.
also. I'm also the weak link. I've discovered too with the app, because they can request extra time on apps. And I thought it was going to both my wife and I, but they've been targeting, and particularly Sienna's been targeting me as like, can I get 15 more minutes? I was like, I didn't know that, so I'm the weak link in that regard.
I'm
Yeah.
the
So, but
pushover.
trying to navigate that, as well, and
Yeah.
not have them spend too much time. That's where both my wife and I, there's guitar lessons, there's musical theatre, there's netball, there's lots of things that they do that's outside that realm of like, let's put even though we make social media, let's put the phone down and get out there and let's do some stuff, and let's walk the dog, or let's do something, or go out to the mall, or whatever. Just do those things that aren't always centered around, social media, and the times we do it, great, but the other times just trying to put that boundary on it as well, so it doesn't feel like we're on show 24/7, to each other, I guess. And that's, we always make sure we film something, someone's got an idea, we film it, we always make sure that everyone in the family is okay with it before we upload and things like that, because the last thing we want to do is put that out when someone's unhappy, or they feel like they're, they're not part of the joke. The joke's on them or anything. So, that's something I'm conscious of as well. You want to protect them in that way too.
It must be hard, like, navigating the feeling of, like, I can imagine just wanting to, like, protect, like, hold them and not, like, put anything out in the world. Like, the idea of, like, putting my child out and someone saying something mean to them, I'd be like, stop it. Like,
I know,
it must be really hard for you to navigate.
Yeah, and that was for a while, even though they would be in little bits on John and Ben or the radio, the TV show, we were just conscious of not, and it's only been something when they've had more, I mean, they're still kids, granted, but there's something that they've wanted to do and wanted to be part of. But you're right, I remember one of Sienna, she just wanted to make YouTube videos, and she's, toy reviews and things like that, and we're doing it for, you're doing it because you love it, and there's getting hardly any likes, but I remember her going, there's 4 thumbs down on this video, like for her to go, why is 4 people going like that? And I'm like, I don't know, but it was one of those, lessons.
Like, I don't know, but I'll find them and I'll kill them.
But she actually probably handles that, a lot better than me, a lot of that sort of stuff as well. She kind of, I guess, maybe it's the generational thing, or maybe it does, it doesn't get to you as much when you're younger. But she's, handled that pretty well, because I imagine you're right. You want to protect them as much as possible, but then when if they want to do some stuff, then you kind of,
and if they want to do it
from anything. And in some ways, there's we try and make them, the public stuff they post is stuff that we've been either part of or okay with, rather than like we're posting random stuff, or they're out doing this. And I guess in some ways too, particularly with Sienna, she sometimes has done a little things for a few little brands and stuff like that, and it's also like she's, they don't want to work with someone who's out vaping or taking days off school when they should, like wagging school, so there's those things that I said to Sienna that come with the, with that as well.
The responsibility,
if you want to do that, then this is part of it. You don't have to, I'm not saying you're going to go out and vape if you're not doing that, but, that's that, the world as well. If you want to do that, then that's part of it as well. So it's been kind of a lesson they've learned, and one that I've been really impressed that they both, managed to do.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it seems like you guys are doing a really good job of navigating it. It's a big, obviously, ongoing conversation.
It is, and I hope you only can do the best with what you've got at the time. But there's probably going to be things you look back and go, there's always, like with anything in life, you look back and make mistakes. So I hope that we don't look back with regret on these things. But I think
particularly with technology,
pros outweighs the cons.
Yeah, it's just like, I think technology is just moving faster than what we can keep up for it. So there'll be research in like 20 years' time, and we're like, damn it. But right now, we're doing the best with the information we have.
You're right. It's all those things that we look back on and we're like, well, it was wild that we did that. We didn't know any better.
Yeah.
when you're growing up, that's the generation before and the generation before that. So it's really interesting. I mean, everyone's navigating a new, parents probably in a generation that is different to what they had, and some more than others, they're all, but but it's all, and so when social media wasn't around when we're kids, and you got to make mistakes that weren't so public, and people didn't have a phone everywhere, and that's kind of hard too, like there's times where people are getting put on the internet without them wanting to be, and that's tough, mate. We've all made these mistakes, and sometimes you're like, thank goodness that didn't go out anywhere, and that's, I find that really hard for kids these days, that those mistakes live out there. They live out so publicly.
Yeah, and they can pop up at really like crucial times in your life and suddenly ruin everything. Like, I just think there's just not a lot of grace right now for mistakes people
Yeah.
have made in their past. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
because I
tricky.
mean,
It is
I mean,
tricky.
it's every teenager and every kid, makes those mistakes, and that's part of life. You learn those, and
Yeah.
it's hard that I hope that people get allowed to learn from those and not held accountable for them forever.
Yeah, totally. And then also on the parenting style, I guess like because we obviously don't see much of Amanda, like she's not really like a public facing person, but what is your guys' dynamic like as parents together? Like what are some key values that you have in your parenting or that you've put into your family that you've decided on together?
I mean, it's definitely a partnership, and as I talked about before, there were times where she was doing more stuff and I was doing now more stuff, but we are definitely a partnership. We're talking about those things that we want to do. We like to, try and find those times to have the fun, those moments where we can be together, during the week. Look for those moments because things get so busy and the weeks go so fast. So that's something we definitely will try and do. If it's a Friday night, we'll go, okay, we're all going to have dinner together, or we're going to do this one thing this weekend, or try and plan for a holiday somewhere. And it doesn't have to be anywhere crazy, but just to have those little moments that we can all look forward to. And did a camper van holiday a year, I think it was last year, and that was one of the coolest things we did, as a family, and those moments too, trying to appreciate those moments because it just, you get into the day to day, and that's one of the things we definitely, you feel like things are rushing past. So it was something we both try and work on.
Nice. And did you have many conversations about how you would parent before you became parents, or is it something you kind of just rolled with along the way?
Yeah, I guess it's probably been, we've probably rolled with along the way, but having those conversations as you go and then going, okay, well, we need to talk about how this is going, or this thing here, whether it's Sienna being sick, or whether it's, dealing with, things that happen along the teenage years as well. It's probably those things you kind of have those moments where social media as well, are they spending too much time on the devices and things like that, and what are our rules around this for the time being, or are we going to keep the phones and devices are going to stay out in the lounge publicly, and the doors are going to stay open if so there's no closed doors device. Those things you've kind of had to talk about, and you talk to other parents, or you read things, or you see other things as well, and you go, okay, maybe there's things we could be doing or adding, or things. So it's probably been nothing. I guess we probably haven't had the foresight to predict a lot of these things, but
sorry that you couldn't predict social media happening. But
that's the thing as well, and I think every parent was talking about adolescence and those things, the dark side of social media, the show,
terrifying.
And the worst case scenario, and just so what is that, again, you hope that you give them all the skills that the kids to what they do, but it's a world that you can't be across all the time if you open that door. So you kind of hope that those things that they have, where that's kindness and being nice to people, and but as the way they are online as well as in the real life as well, I guess.
And you hope that you've given them a safe enough relationship with you that if they found themselves in a sticky situation, they would feel comfortable coming and talking to you about it as well, which is, from the outside, really seems like you've got that relationship with your girls, considering you make things online with them. So
I hope so. I definitely go to them if you see, because I know with me, if I see a comment, or if I, it's hard even as an adult from time to time, depending on what sort of day you're having, you'll read something and you'll be like, because you want, naturally, I feel like I want people to like me, and I feel, and
I think if you're drawn to kind of public figure kind of content performing, I think naturally that those are where the people pleasers find themselves, because we like praise and adoration. That's where you end up.
But it's not always the case that people are going to, love what you do.
No.
The reality of what it is, people make up their minds, or people just do. And that's something I've had to accept. But I did, I have said to the girls many times that if there's something you've seen and you want to talk about it, or you do, just don't try and let that sit with you, because I feel like sometimes that'll sit with me, and it's nice to. My wife is amazing with those things with me, so she's kind of my outlet of going, hey, I've had this, or do you think this is okay, or do you and her putting some perspective in that for me, So I guess the two of us want to be that for the girls, I guess, as well, if that happens, and protect them as much as we can.
Yeah, as much as you can. Well, it sounds like you guys are doing a really good job of navigating that, sort of keeping it an active conversation of as things are developing, of you guys still trying to find the line and where you guys sit with it. So I guess that's all you can do, really.
Well, yeah, trying to. Yeah, and as I say, I hope that we're doing it okay, and hope you're looking back.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're like, okay, well, we left, some of those videos that go crazy. Some of the comments go into a hole, because I've been one. I'm like, I don't like reading comments. For me, I just ignore. But then when the girls are involved, it's like something we need to be better at, and
Yeah.
or disabled, and the comments are gone. So.
Yeah.
That's been something, a lesson that we've sort of been trying to learn, but we could, personally, I feel like it's an improvement, for me, and something that I'm working on as well.
Yeah. Constantly learning. Are you telling me that parenting keeps going? You have to keep on learning? Ugh.
Yeah, well, it feels that way, doesn't it? I don't know. I
don't just get them toilet trained and then I'm done? What's that
Well,
about?
there you go. Yeah. I know, that's true. Again, yeah. I know, it doesn't feel like, at no stage do you feel like you have a clock parenting, eh? It's one of those things.
No,
Now,
have to keep faking it till we make it forever?
Yeah.
Fuck.
It's like a bad news for you, but yeah. But it is cool. Every stage is a cool one, so yeah,
Good.
it's fun. It's exciting, But, you're at more the start line than I am, but it's exciting for you. It's cool.
Yeah. We'll move on to the next question, which is, what has your biggest what the was that moment been since becoming a parent? What moment has made you go like, what the is happening right now?
I mean, there is definitely those moments where you go, one that really sprung to mind was a trip that we did. My wife's got family in the States, so we're like, we'll take the kids. They were young and going over to the States. And I remember Indy had just had milk and she was young and she just didn't hold it on the plane and just went all over me. And it was one of those moments where you're plane. I don't have another top. I'm on a plane for like 11 hours or whatever. I'm like, I'm just sitting in this right now. There's not much I can do about this.
I'm in vomit for the next 10 hours.
Yeah. So I got to the airport and I think I had to buy some overpriced tourist t-shirt just to change at the airport. Things like that. And I think the same trip, we'd been having a conversation with Sienna about anatomy a few weeks ago, and and talking about body parts and bits and pieces, and she chose, when we're going up to someone at customs, to yell out penis quite loudly. And we're like, what? She's obviously been thinking about things in her mind, and that was one of those moments. It was like, you blurted that out now? Like, we hadn't had a conversation about that since 2 weeks ago.
Like, no one knows us here. Everyone's on edge here. Everyone's looking at us weird now.
I'm smelling like milk and she's yelling out some stuff that you're like, it's okay. Yeah, so there's
she is my child, I promise. Oh, no.
And there's definitely those moments along the way that you kind of go, but then even recently, with some of the social media stuff that has gone kind of nuts as well, that's been a real, like, it was just one of those, I'd done a couple of little things where I'd said all those Gen Z words that were making the girls cringe, and I'd done a little video or two with them, and then just went through the drive-through one day, and my wife was filming, and I'll try something here, see how it goes, and then just put it online. It was one of those ones you're like, wow, that really just escalated and just kind of snowballed into, that was a real, like, what the hell moment that happened, and I remember my wife going, it was like, and just to see a video just go, wow, it's like, I think at Instagram right now, it's up to 84 million views or something.
That's
and
crazy.
Over 100. And it's just like, as you said, people commenting it that don't follow me. It's not like I've got 4 million followers or even 1 million followers now, but just to see how a video can just go, and then you're getting talked to by Australian media and bits and pieces. You're like, that was all just from a drive-through thing that we did. And took 10 minutes down the road here that I was just like, I'll do that for a laugh, And then that probably encouraged me to do more of that sort of stuff as well. But that was one of those moments you're like, and it probably hit that generation, the two generations that sort of parents going, oh, that's kind of funny because, that's, I can see that side. Yeah. And then the kids going, well, I got secondhand embarrassment for your kids. So that's kind of funny as well, that he's trying to be cool, but he's not cool. So yeah, it kind of got into that sweet spot that I hadn't sort of, again, like you were saying before, career-wise, not that it's, I hadn't gone to that sort of spot. And I was like, okay, well, maybe that's a little spot I'm at right now. So that was definitely one of those moments you're like, that's pretty surreal. My wife was like, I think it got to a couple of million. She was like, they might do a news article on you. And I was like, no, we're not going to do a news article on this. And then it was a couple of days later, like the Herald was ringing, and I was like, I was like, okay, you're wrong. Okay, you're wrong.
Okay, you were right again, of course.
I was like, why would they do that? This is me going through a drive-through with the kids. But
does it freak you out? Like when a video hits like that, is there an element of like, I have a very tiny following, and I had a TikTok that got like 8,000 views, and that
Yeah.
got like, and that was like the biggest I've had so far. And it was like my first, not even negative comments, but comments like disagreeing with what I've said or like engaging in conversation. And the anxiety that came with that, I was very
Yeah.
surprised by. Just like the idea that suddenly my ideas and who I am, or like just a little bit of who I am as a person, is being perceived by people I don't know,
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
surprisingly anxiety inducing for me. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
can't even imagine that honest. And I know that yours is like a skit, so it's like hard for people to interpret that in a negative way. But I guess like,
Yeah, but it's still
is,
like it's
is
you're
that
doing it in
scary?
real life. You know, yeah, oh, yeah, it
Yeah.
definitely is to go out. As I said before, it goes out to, like you said, it goes out to a whole lot of people that, you know, not just people that follow you, but a whole lot of
Yeah,
other
you've got
people.
no control over where it goes.
And they're making their mind, and it does, it kind of it kind of gets into like a slipstream of like it goes there, and then suddenly you look at it, you're like, oh my goodness, it's
Yes.
got more people watch,
You're like,
this thing.
what? Huh?
Well, why are these
Yeah.
people watching this thing? Why is
Why
this,
do
you
you
know,
care?
why? Yeah, I know. And then, you know, and then after that, you know, but social media again, you can't predict, you know, you're like, oh, this next video will go great. And it doesn't, you know, like, so there's no way to predict, you know, I had no idea
No.
that one would. And then another week I did, like, the girls wear their shirts, you know, slightly tucked up, their t-shirts, like the teenage
Yeah,
girls.
that,
So I was just
that made me crack up that
out
video.
with my
That
wife,
was
and I was
so
just like
funny.
watching that. I was like, "Can you just roll up for a second?" And I did it, and it was totally. And again, that one, you know, kind of went quite well as well. And I was like, "Well, again, one of those." I mean, it's hard. Sometimes the simplest ideas are the hardest ones to come up with. But yeah, again, going to places that, you know, into the debate about what people were wearing and all these things that
Yes.
wasn't meant to be me making
Not the intention.
a
Yeah.
point about that. It was just me having a bit of fun with the way, you know, like much like they'd mock me for something I wear. I was kind of
Yeah.
like having a bit of fun with how they want to express themselves. So it was,
Yeah.
but you're right. It goes into people having opinions that weren't kind of what the intention was, but it's just the way it is. So
Yeah.
it does kind of freak you out a little bit.
Have you found it hard, like, I guess, putting so much of yourself out online, or even like through your radio show? Like, I remember, who was it? Maybe it was Sharon talking about, I can't remember, someone talking about how they were sick, not sick, but like they were finished of mining their life for content, that they were like,
Yeah.
I just want to like not be looking for opportunities to have content in my life anymore. I just want to like live my life at home. And so I feel like for your whole career, you've had certain opportunities where you have been like finding inspiration from your own life. Is it hard to like turn up and like be on and performance ready if things are necessarily like not going as well in your private life, or like dealing with the anxiety or the imposter syndrome? Like, how does that affect everything and like your parenting?
You're right. I mean,
and-
there's definitely times where things are, you know, like you're not as well, you know, you're not feeling good about things, you know, mentally, or things aren't going as well, or times that if it's home or whatever it is, or family, you know, that aren't going, and you've got to kind of, those are the times you feel like you definitely are putting on more of a performance, I guess, more of being, you know, because no one wants to listen. Well, we can be real on the radio. We can have those conversations where, hey, you know, this is, you know, concerning me, or this, we're not that show all the time. You can't be like that for 3 hours every morning. So, you know, you're about trying to, you know, be entertaining and bring people up. So there's those times where you have to kind of put on that mask, I guess, and try and be that, you know, person there. And there are other times where everything is going great and you're feeling it more genuine. So it is something that, you know, and I guess some ways of being an adult, and I talk to the kids about this, is, you know, you do feel that at times too. You know, you walk into a place and sometimes you're like, I don't really want to be here, but I'm going to be here, and I'm going to have to smile when I get in the door, and, you know, and meet these people and do this
Say
thing
hey,
or whatever it is. And, you
yeah.
know, like, and that's, I guess, in some ways, you know, I feel like we all do that to various degrees, but you're right. It's, and there's a lot of thinking about stuff all the time. And that's one of the things I love and about the job, but then sometimes you're everywhere still thinking about it, and it's very hard to turn that off.
Hard to switch off.
But don't want to complain about the job because it's really fun, but at the same
good
time,
one.
you are constantly thinking about, you know, your brain is probably working a million miles an hour on, oh, that's a funny thing, or that's a thing, or this could be a chat, or this, So whoever said that was probably quite true in those regards. Sometimes you're like, I don't think I've got anything else to talk about. Everything I've done in my life has happened. I've talked about it, and then something else will
Everything,
happen.
I've clocked it.
Yeah. Or
done.
you'll go out there, or take the kids, or someone will say something, or the dog will do something. You're like, okay, there's something for tomorrow, or
thank
you just
God,
talk to
thank
someone.
God.
Yeah. And at other times, someone will say something to you as well. And my wife's always like, you always pick up your phone and writing a little note to someone in the phone.
Yes,
or,
I have we have a granny flat downstairs, and one of the producer for the ZM afternoon show, Ella Shepherd, lives downstairs. She's a good friend of mine. Yes,
great. Yeah, she's great.
Crack up. Yeah, she is. But I remember very early on when she started working for Brie and Clint, we were just having a conversation and she like tried to very subtly pick up her phone and like write a note. And I was like, I can see what you're doing.
Yeah, because you're like, I'll forget this if I don't write this down right now.
She was like, no, it's just very funny. She's like, I need to remember this.
Yeah, it's like, again, Indie being so good about those things. So we're like, sometimes she'll look at me, we'll be talking about something or something we have, and she'll just look at me and go, radio. And I'll be like, yeah, I got it.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, she'll be like, Dad,
we're on the same page here.
This is a good story, or this little
that.
moment's happened, and you're like, this is good for radio. I'm like, thanks, Indy.
That's so good. I love that.
So I guess the family in some ways are thinking about those things to help me out too. But yeah,
you brought them on board. They're like your consultants now.
Yeah. Well, that's one good thing. I mean, I think if something happens, you're like, oh, I got a parking ticket, or this thing happened. I'm like, well, maybe I could turn this into a radio bit or a little chat bit or something.
Nice silver lining.
Yeah, that's the one small silver lining from time to time. Yeah. When something, I left my keys, or, we turn that into something. So, yeah.
Have you ever had a situation with either of the girls where you've shared a story and they've been like, that sucked that you shared that story? Like, has that ever happened?
Hasn't happened so far, but I guess we do. Yeah, I think I hope try and predict if anything is, something that would, hey, you okay? We're talking about this or this thing, or this is quite, I find, this is funny, but is this funny for you? But yeah. I mean, maybe they haven't listened to enough of the show or the podcast too, but it could be that. But
they start listening and they're like, what the hell, man?
All these things happen. But yeah, I'm definitely conscious of that a lot more now as they are becoming their own person, and they're in the high school years as well, and you don't want to be talking about something that maybe I think is funny or whatever they may not find funny talking about in that way. So yeah, there's definitely those conversations. I'm like, yes, you're okay for me to talk about this in a way that, or I can leave this out or whatever it is to make sure that they're comfortable. But yeah, again, you don't want to get that wrong because, you know what it's like when someone talks about something of you and you're like, oh, that's, you want them to be on the right side of the joke. Yeah, exactly. So
totally.
But there are those moments. So thankfully, usually that's me, the butt of the joke, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I was just saying to Sienna actually tonight, which I was going to talk about on radio tomorrow, there was a thing, she's shocking for leaving wet towels on the floor. It's my thing at the moment. I'm like, you got to pick up their towels. And I was trying to over explain it. I was going just to try and be funny. I was like, see, towels are wet, so, you leave it on the floor, and the family will laugh. That can cause, it's mold and dampness and not good for your room. And the family were having a bit of a laugh. And then Sienna came back with, that's a good joke. You should put it on your TV show. And then she's like, oh, that's right. You don't have one. And I was like, oh, that's a good.
Oh, jeez.
And I was
like, hit me where it hurts, kid. Bloody hell.
And I was like, that's a real good bird. Are you all right for me using it on radio? And she's like,
actually fantastic. Yeah, so she's like, yeah, Dad, that's great content. Obviously, use it.
Yeah. So I was like, hey, that's a really good comeback. I can't argue with that.
Can't argue with that, eh?
Yeah. So
that's
again, I guess they are providing me with just as much content.
Yeah. We've made it to the last question, which is, if you were listening to this podcast on the day you became a parent, what would you want yourself to hear?
Yeah. Well, we probably talked about, I guess, a few of those things about those past, like that you feel like this is going to be, this thing is, the kids are never going to sleep, or this thing's going to happen, or this is, but for, not everything passes in some situations, but most of those things will pass, and you'll look back on those things, and each thing is a learning thing along the way, but just the old cliche, how fast it goes. And, looking back on all that, I definitely feel like things just move at a rate of knots. And so it's like, if you could do it all again, you're like, like those things you might second guess, like do that activity, take that holiday, spend that time. It doesn't always have to be like, my wife's really good at going. It doesn't have to be expensive. Sometimes the kids just want to hang with you and just do, go. We went to one holiday. It was after lockdown. We hadn't been away anywhere for ages. And we went to Queenstown as a family. And it was awesome. But I remember talking to Sienna and I was like, what was your favorite thing we did? And I think she was like, we did a zip line, and that was, it was cool. And she was like, this is amazing. And then I said to Indy, what was your favorite thing we did? And she was like, just feeding the ducks. And that was just a real, indication of like, and both things were what I love doing, but just how, it didn't cost us anything, was just a real, just a real awesome moment. And that's for her, that was everything on that trip, that was the best moment. So it's probably those things as well that, like it doesn't always have to be extravagant, but just to appreciate those moments and try and be present, because they're not always, they're not always going to be around. So just, enjoy the ride, for good and bad. You feel very privileged to do it. So, it's one of those things I'm like, I don't want to mess this up because this is more than me now. If it's me messing it up for me, I'm like, I can wear that on the, I can wear that on the chin. But
yeah. I know when I think a bit too much about it, I get a bit existential about it, where I'm like, I'm raising a human life.
Yeah.
Like, I can get really like, my gosh, it's such an honor. Like, I have to sort of calm myself back down again.
And I go through these phases as well. Like, I'm definitely an overthinker about stuff, and my anxiety levels are, I'm like, it's the Wi-Fi. Should I turn that off at night? What's on all these things? Like all these things I can go down this rabbit hole of, as well. So you're just hoping you're doing the best you can with what you can do, but
it is like
with the food you're giving them,
it's simultaneously very comforting to hear that someone who has been a parent for 15 years still feels like that, and also I'm like, damn it, that's never going to go away.
yeah. And I think if you're that sort of person as well too, that's you're probably the same as me.
I'm in it forever.
You're still going to be thinking about those things or those situations. So that's definitely something. It doesn't go away, but it's a tremendous. It feels like a tremendous honor. Like, it's the coolest thing I've ever been part of. And as I said, when I did that exercise the other day at work, I was like, that was the only thing that really mattered to me. In the future, that they were doing what they wanted to do. So that was kind of cool.
That is really cool. Well, Ben, thank you so much. So for the people that are new here listening, what's going to happen now is the official podcast finishes here, but over on my Substack, I'm asking Ben a 6th question.
Ooh,
so if you want to hear that, head over to my Substack. So if you're not subscribed, bye-bye. Thank you for joining us today.
Why do you parent like that?
Thank you for listening to this episode of Why Do You Parent Like That? Why Do You Parent Like That is created by me, your gal, Abby Harrison. Huge love and snuggles to my gorgy nephew and niece, Thomas and Francis, for lending their voices to my jingle, as well as a massive thank you to the iHeartRadio Podcast Network team for giving this little pod a place to call home. Be sure to follow our socials to stay up to date with podcast happenings, as well as chaotic insights to my life. If you have a story that you reckon would be neat to share on the pod, flick me an email at whydoyouparentlike.that podcast@gmail.com. Love you. Say it back.
Why do you parent